and happy Monday. Welcome into Big Talk, college sports with a Midwest perspective. Blue collar and blue blood. I am Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by this guy next to me here, Tony Hollinsworth. Tony, how are we this fine Monday?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. I won't say the news that I had, but let's say there's just been a change at my job, and it's a very positive change to me. Like it was, the sun is shining a little brighter, the birds are singing a little stronger, a little better. Like it's a great time. For other people, not a great time. For me, great time.
Well, and kind of the same thing with what we're getting ready to talk about. It happened about a week prior, but Tom Allen leaving Penn State as the defensive coordinator to go help Dabo Swinney in the ACC and the Clemson Tigers and being the defensive coordinator over there. Tony, that's does it seem like it's a move up or a lateral move?
I'm going to be honest. I would almost say it's a downgrade. Oops, as I drop my phone. I'm going to say it's a downgrade. And I say that because I've talked about it a lot, both on my own show, and I think we talked about it briefly on here as we were going through the college football playoff bracket when Clemson was first in. Dabo has so limited himself with the transfer portal. And I mean, I know.
He'll make you he'll never let you back on the team.
I know. I'll never get my scholarship. It just sucks. I'll never be a Clemson Tiger. It's okay. I'll be an LSU Tiger. They're better. Maybe. But at least Brian Kelly uses the transfer portal. Not very well, but he uses it. But nonetheless, though, like to me, it is a downgrade because if you look at Clemson's never exactly had bad defenses by any stretch of the imagination. Right. And I don't feel that is what Clemson is lacking. I truly just feel that because other schools are now able to pay for players and able to recruit better, and not saying that, Dabo can't, but if I'm one of these, high school athletes or one of these collegiate athletes that is in the portal, it's like, okay, well, Dabo doesn't really want me to start with anyway, so Clemson's probably out. And if I do potentially want to look at Clemson, I have to look at them last. And if I'm one of these kids that say I go to somewhere like Michigan or say I go to somewhere like Oregon and I'm like, hey, this is actually really nice. Like I don't even think I'm going to consider looking at Clemson. That's something that Dabo should definitely look at. It's like at least give yourself the opportunity to open yourself up for other people and other kids to see, because you have to think of it too. Not only is part of it money, part of it is just these kids recruiting each other. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I want to go play with this kid because I think this kid is going to be really talented, or we played it with each other in high school, or we played against him in some type of high school senior bowl or something to that effect. So why you would never try to capitalize on that, I don't really know. For Allen, I mean, maybe it leads him back into the head coaching, portal as far as, I think he did really well for Penn State when he was the defensive coordinator for him last year. I don't think the defense was the problem at all for Penn State. And obviously we'll dive more into that as we talk about Jim Knowles to go in Penn State. So, I mean, if he's able to do the same, even have remotely the same replication of success with Clemson, I very much think that we could potentially be talking about Tom Allen and, throwing his hat into the head coaching ring again. Don't know where, but I think it's possible.
Well, they've been searching. Clemson's been searching for their defensive guys since Brent Venables left for Oklahoma. Yeah. I mean, they just haven't been the same team defensively. So, for Tom Allen to be lured away from Penn State, and I'm going to say lured away because you know what? I mean, it just doesn't seem like it fits why he would leave.
Right.
Now that lends to his replacement as well, but we'll talk about that here in a minute too, like you said. But it just, what was that move? Is it he's setting himself up? I would think that, being one of the top defenses in the country at Penn State, that's enough. Does he need to rebuild another defense?
I could see both arguments, to be 100% honest with you. I could see the argument of, I went to Penn, I get over to Penn State, who and be realistic about it too. Penn State already had a lot of defensive talent there. They already had the makings of a really good defense to start, and he continued that on. So you at least didn't screw that up. And maybe it is one of those you look at it of either I stay at Penn State for a while and then maybe I do a move that way because I've kept a program up standard wise for their defense, or like you said, maybe he goes to Clemson and maybe he tries to kind of recapture some of that Brett Venables magic that they have of, okay, Clemson's a good defense, but if I can make it slightly better and maybe get it back to that point or real similar to, maybe that kind of brings it back. I almost look at it as you're having success in multiple places as a variety, not just, hey, we're Penn State, we can beat up on basically everybody except for the big boys of the Big Ten. Now I'm going to try somewhere else in really a conference that, looking at it right now, just kind of for what it is, and I know we don't dive super in depth into it, and I don't either because I don't follow the ACC that much, but the ACC realistically is pretty wide open. Like I feel like honestly, just about every year at this point, it's Clemson's to lose.
Well, I almost think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was Tom Allen. Tom Allen was only at Penn State 1 year.
Correct.
And it seems to me that maybe he cashed in on something that maybe is he really confident that he could keep Penn State at that level? Or was it, okay, I need to cash in and get out to where these guys are going to start leaving eventually here in the next and Penn State's defense isn't going to be as good, and maybe his shortcomings as a defensive coach, I'm not saying that he's got them, I just it really seems odd, the lateral, or even like you said, the low move, the step back to go somewhere that maybe the expectations aren't as high. If they're just as good, or if they're slightly better. I'm not saying Tom Allen isn't a good defensive mind, but is he trying to hide something? It just seems funny that he would go to Penn State for 1 year and they would be one of the best teams, best defenses in the country, almost make it to the national championship game. They're one field goal, a bad throw and a field goal kick away from making it to the national championship game, and he's up and gone.
Yeah. And who knows too? I mean, you have to think about it. He went to Penn State after getting fired really for a lackluster time at Indiana. I mean, he was there at Indiana for 6 seasons. He was 33-49 as a head coach with IU. So nothing that's really crazy. So I mean, it could have even been, or actually, let me make sure. Yeah, 33-49. Okay. I was like, that math doesn't seem right, but I just want to make sure. So, I mean, it might have been one of those, okay, I'm going to take a job that is obviously good. It's one of the better jobs, and I'm going to transform this team, but maybe it's just somewhere that he felt, okay, I've done everything I can here and I want to try something different. Because we've seen a lot of coaches do that too. It's like, why would you want to go there? And
I'm not even saying that he'd want to go to Clemson. But he was at Penn State for 1 year.
Yeah. And who knows too, because you have to think, like we talked about with the narrative as far as James Franklin goes, because I don't think James Franklin's going to be out regardless. But eventually, is there going to potentially be a scapegoat for, okay, what is the real reason that we're not succeeding? Now, believe it or not, I don't know why people aren't blaming the offense, and I don't know if that's people are just enamored with Drew Aller and they think that, okay, he's got another year and then he's going to be this really polished, refined quarterback. I've heard a lot of reports and people think that he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the draft next season, which, I mean, if he has the offseason progression that I think a lot of people are projecting him to, maybe. But, much like we talked about through most of this segment, of the defense was not the problem at all. And maybe it's one of those, he even saw the writing on the wall of, my defense is going to be fine, but I don't have an offense that I necessarily trust to be able to get it done. So I want to go somewhere that I think the offense would be better. They just need a complementary defense to go with it.
Maybe. It just, for some reason, I keep sitting here looking at it going, this makes 0 sense why Tom Allen would leave. It's zero sense as to, he was only a coordinator for 1 year. He just was a head coach, for crying out loud. And then he takes over the D coordinator position at Penn State, and they do just as what they had been, as well wise as they had been in the past few years after that or before that. And for him to make that move just weirds me out. I can't say anything other than it weirds me out.
I say we could almost roll it into, you know, our next topic of Jim Knowles going over to Penn State, and it could be for the same reason. It could just be
talking ahead, Mr. Man.
I know. I'm just saying it could. Tom Allen could have, you know, Dabo and Clemson could have walked up to old Tom and been like, "Hey, buddy, here, Clyde, you a few Benjamins. Why don't you just come on over here to the Tigers?
The weather's nicer.
Weather's nicer down in Carolina. I mean, you're going to get that weird mustard barbecue crap, but, you know, hey, it's to each their own, I guess.
You're not a Carolina barbecue guy, huh?
No, it's like mustard and it's like vinegary. And I need either hot and spicy or like sweet and spicy. I need like Texas. I don't need
need sugar Tennessee in your barbecue, huh?
I need diabetes. Okay. I need diabetes.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and step away on that note. Real quick for the podcast or audio podcast, we're going to step away, take a break, and we'll be right back and talk a little bit about the fill-in, the person taking Tom Allen's spot just announced here in the last couple of days. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Big Talk on the Believe and Lounge Sports Network. All right, we are back. That was a long one. Did you relax during the break?
I did. I got a little nap in, a little 30-second power nap. Kick
your feet up, yeah.
Got a chance to take my pants off. I'm not wearing pants.
No, okay. Do with that what you want on that information, everybody. But we're now going to shift gears, I guess, to a point. Just announced on Sunday that Jim Knowles, the DC for the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, has left Columbus to go be the D coordinator at Penn State. He's receiving, I believe it's $3.1 million a year to be the DC. Tony, it can't be just about the money, can it?
To me, I think it is, because, like, you know, like we talked about with Tom Allen, the defense was not the problem at Penn State at all. They had a top defense almost all year. I am going to try to look up what I think the highest scoring game that Penn State had and the most points that they allowed, I'm pretty sure was just the Oregon game, I think. But my internet has also decided to.
I'm pretty positive you're right. I mean, other than maybe, honestly, I think Bowling Green put up some points on them.
I know they did for sure
of the game at the beginning of the season, and but yeah, I mean, but every year you're gonna, even if with the best defenses, you're gonna give up some points. It's not necessarily that you'll never give up a high scoring game. I mean, every good team defensively gives up some points once in a while. In a game that it just doesn't make any sense as to why, type thing. But
so
go ahead.
I say real quick, just to answer question, the most points that they allowed other than Oregon dropping 45 on them was that close overtime win against USC. USC was able to put up 30. Other than that, there's a couple games people were able to score 27 and 25. Other than that, I mean, most of them were held to either about 14 points or less in almost every single game they played. So the defense was not the problem at all.
Well, and that's the kicker is I don't know where. I mean, you're coming from Columbus and Ohio State. I would argue, a lot would argue, the best defense in college football. And I don't understand the move there. And this is exactly the same, in my opinion, as you saying Tom Allen going to Clemson was a step down. I don't see this necessarily as a step up or even a vertical move for Jim Knowles. I really don't.
And from what I've heard, and even from what I've been reading, it might even just be more of it's a home move, because Jim Knowles is from Pennsylvania and he's
Okay.
from close to the
Okay.
Philly area. So I mean, it could also be part of that. I think part of it is the money. I think part of it's that, and I mean, realistically
So Knowles
too.
is finally making it back home. He was in Oklahoma. He moved to Columbus,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's getting close to home, huh?
Yeah, because he was born in Philly. Um,
We
so
won't
yeah,
hold
I
that
mean
against
this.
him.
Right, I know he's probably ecstatic about this NFC Championship results crap. Nonetheless, though, I mean, it, it's kind of that same thing of when I looked at Ohio State, they definitely needed the defense, but he kind of inherited an Ohio State team that really most of that group stayed with him throughout his entire time. And a lot of them are unfortunately going to be leaving because a lot of them are fourth or even fifth year seniors. That honestly their time has just come up. So I know I wonder if between him and Ryan Day both, if maybe he's a little hesitant as far as who am I going to be able to bring in to be able to match that or even to stay, competitive with what I had. But much to your point with Tom Allen, going to Clemson with that is he not worried about the same thing with Penn State of, you're going to have to rebuild this team within what, at least 2 years by, a year to 2 years. Because a lot of these guys I know are pretty young and they're, coming into their sophomore and junior year. So you may not have a whole lot of them for very long.
Well, and I wonder if this is more of a move for James Franklin. Like he was like, look, I've got to beat Ohio State.
Probably.
I've got to.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? Let's throw a bunch of money and incentive to his DC. Not only does that make their defense potentially a better defense
Mm-hmm.
with Jim Knowles coming to Happy Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and it debilitates what Ohio State just did.
Yep.
Um, I don't know who they're going to replace. I haven't even seen anything. I haven't gone to look yet, because them bringing in Jim Knowles was a huge move.
Yeah.
Like it was huge, and so for them to now all of a sudden have this huge move taken away from them,
Mm-hmm.
this piece away from them, it begs to wonder where if this is maybe a you know how they say all great teams eventually start eroding from the inside. Is this a start of that, or is this just a okay? Well, there's enough turnaround. We can replace a DC with the incoming freshman or the incoming defense that we can be okay.
I mean, maybe. I mean, because you have to think too. We really didn't hear anything much about Jim Knowles after the loss to Michigan, as far as how Ryan Day felt. We didn't hear any rumblings
Right.
as far as if Jim Knowles should go away. With Jim Knowles, I felt like honestly kind of was able to just go under the radar. Like he did everything he was supposed to do. Like Michigan wasn't able to do no high scoring thump on him.
Michigan scored 13 points. They
Like
shouldn't have beat Ohio State.
and if you remember, most people they weren't calling for Jim Knowles. It's like no, Chip Kelly and Ryan Day need to go. Like Jim is fine. Jim can stay where he's at. They need to go. But yeah, and it's funny too because even other potential, I would say, quote unquote, big fish that you could look at, especially just from the playoffs. Notre Dame's defensive coordinator just signed with the Bengals to be their
Right.
defensive coordinator.
Right.
So okay,
Al Golden.
that's another big fish kind of gone. And again, I kind of look at everywhere else. It's like, I'm not really seeing or hearing any names unless they pull maybe somebody who was in the NFL last year. Maybe they take a
Well,
college
I
job.
do
I
know
don't.
Ryan Walters is not available. He's at Washington, so
That's true. That's true.
he's with the Huskies. They can't get him.
I mean, do they really want him though?
He was a great D coordinator.
He was for Illinois. He was great, and he'd probably be great for Columbus too.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Now, I didn't know a lot about Jim Knowles coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I knew that he had some hype when he was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know much of anything else. Um, from what I've seen him do in Columbus, though, he's done some great. Because if we remember, that was the issue with the Buckeyes is they needed a better, stronger defense,
Mm-hmm.
a more stout, a stronger defense that could complement a high scoring offense. And it took Knowles one full season after he came in, and that defense was locked in.
Yeah.
Even when you look at the Sugar Bowl last year that they got beat against Missouri, those were second and third stringers, and they still held a fully loaded number 9 Missouri squad to like 16 points in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
They
Ooh.
lost, but
Mm-hmm.
Missouri. That's how. I mean, that told me Jim Knowles has got these guys locked in.
So here are some interesting names that because I looked just to see the rumblings of who maybe might replace Jim Knowles. So this is
Chip
from
Kelly
two.
going to call the defense too?
Oh God, no, please. Oh God. So this is from Buckeyes Wire.USA Today. So these are the names that they have. They have Matt Guerrieri. He looks like almost like a what's his name? Guy Fieri. Kind of looks like that, but with like Guerrero, like gorilla in front of it. The Ohio State safeties coach, Jeff Hafley, the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes, the Indiana defensive coordinator, Luke Fickell, potentially. Now it does have on here the why it makes sense, why it doesn't. It says why it might not happen. The obvious here is that Fickell is already a head coach making over $7 million in another Big Ten school. Does he really want to leave that situation and come back to the position again? Feels like a demotion, but hey, who knows? We didn't see Chip Kelly thing coming either, so there's a chance.
It? Now here that right there is the reason why I would say it's not out of the realm of impossibility, because
Right.
Chip Kelly, there was no rumor that he was even thinking about leaving
That's true.
UCLA. And all of a sudden it was announced that he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that Luke Fickell would, but it actually does make sense in the aspect of, you know what? Yeah, he's making $7 million, but he's also taking a bunch of heat for the first losing season in over 20 years in Wisconsin, in Madison. Does he truly believe in what he's doing and want to stay at the helm in Madison? Probably.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's an interesting thing. The precedence has been set with Chip Kelly, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe this is something that maybe it is something that could happen.
So a couple other names real quick. We also have James Laurinaitis, who's Ohio State's linebackers coach right now. Yeah. Tim Walton, the Ohio State cornerback coach. And then this one is from 11warriors.com. They have a lot of the repeats. They have some other kind of interesting ones. The one that I think would be most interesting, and I would kind of want your thoughts on it, because we actually talked about this guy maybe moving into a head coaching position not too long ago. Gentleman who filled in for Wisconsin, was the interim head coach for the Badgers after Paul Chryst got fired. Gentleman by the name of old Jim Leonhard, maybe because he's the Denver Broncos defensive pass game coordinator, so it would actually be a bit of an upgrade for him. And while he was in charge of the Badgers defense as their DC from 2017 to 2022, they ranked in the top 11 nationally in total defense in all but one of his 6 seasons in that role. So, I mean, that would be a pretty decent little pickup. Mike Tressel is Wisconsin's defensive coordinator currently, is also rumored. John Heacock, the Iowa State defensive coordinator, who is apparently the younger brother of a former Ohio State coordinator, and Jim Heacock. So there's a lot of potential names out there that maybe they go after, because Ohio State, they're not going to be afraid to spend the money to get them.
Well, and they're going to move quickly too. So I would think by the time we come around next Monday, we'll probably, and it could be even before we come around Friday. I don't know. But I would assume that they're going to try to get that filled relatively quickly, in the fact that they don't want to have recruits pulling out and leaving because they don't know who their defensive coordinator is going to be.
Right?
They committed to Jim Knowles, being there along with Ryan Day, and now that Knowles isn't there, you're probably going to get some that will probably back out anyway.
Right.
But in the fact that they want to make sure, like, look, you'd be working with Laurinaitis anyway, so now he's just the guy calling the shots or whatever, that
Right.
type of thing. That maybe they make an in-house hire that makes it a little bit more palatable for those commits to stay in Columbus rather than, you know what, I'm going to pull out and test the waters, because there have been some things going on with the transfer portal. People are talking, well, the portal's closed. Well, I don't have the report on my hands right now, but there was a young man at Wisconsin that went into the portal, got coaxed back out of the portal, remained with Wisconsin, then decided, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I'm just going to withdraw from school and enroll at Miami. And then it was ruled that there's nothing that says players can't just quit school at one place and re-enroll in another place and be eligible to play. So now all of a sudden that's a possibility. So I mean, NCAA football is a mess sometimes, but I really think that they'll make a decision relatively quickly. That way they can try to save as many recruits as possible.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, it'll be definitely an interesting topic to keep an eye on as we move forward with the week. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Tony, would you please let everybody know where they can find us?
Sure will. You can find us on Facebook at B1G Talk. That's Big Talk, but with a 1 instead of an I. You can also find us on Instagram, X, and TikToks, since we still got TikToks around, at _B1G Talk. That's Big Talk with a 1 instead of an I. You can find us Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or at minimum 3 times a week on the All Sports All Plays network that you can get on either the Apple or Android store, either one. And you had best believe that as soon as Sam has the chance, that he will upload it not only to the Believe Podcast Network, but also the Lounge Sports Network, which falls under the Lounge Media Group. It's just a really cool sports umbrella that has cookies on this side, just so everybody knows.
We
so
do
if you
provide cookies, they're good.
Just saying, just throwing it out there. If you want cookies and great sports, especially about the Big Ten, gotta come to Lounge Sports Network.
My favorite cookies are Monster cookies.
Ooh.
The peanut butter oatmeal with M&Ms and chocolate chips.
Ooh. I'm a good fan of the classic. I like the chocolate chip. I'm gonna say this, super controversial, and a lot of people are gonna hate me for it. Those super cheap, is just super crap sugar cookies that you can get during the holidays from like any major retail store that are just like real crumbly and just all fake and just probably toxic as all get out. Love them.
Yep,
absolutely,
they're the best ever. All right, that brings us to the end of this Monday version of Big Talk College Sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. For Tony Hollinsworth, I'm Sam Springer. We'll see you Wednesday.